it's always good.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Out of Nowhere. Um, this new show's been going about 6 months. Before that, I was on Beacon of Light Radio, and before that, I was on Blog Talk Radio. So I've been doing it about 14 years. Lots of different shows, lots of different personalities. And today I've got a great personality on my show. His name is Reverend Michael J.S. Carter. Reverend has written articles on UFOs and religion for such publications as the UFO Magazine, Alien Encounters, MUFON UFO Journal, Contact Forum, the Space Newsletter, Support Program for Abductees, Contact and Encounters, UFO Support Group in New York. He has spoken at UFO conferences such as the Second Philadelphia Need to Know Conference, the annual Long Island UFO Conference with Bud Hopkins, and has appeared on several TV appearances across the nation. And he also appeared on Japanese television discussing the Bible and the UFO. A long time UFO experience, he lectures extensively on this topic of religion and UFOs. Can we please welcome Michael to the show? Hello there.
Hello, brother. Thanks for having me on. I was looking forward to this.
For a lot of people who don't know a lot about you, can you give us a brief outline about yourself and how you got into it?
Okay, I'll keep it brief. Well, I'm a father. I'm a husband. I wear many hats. I serve a congregation, a Unitarian Universalist congregation. I have a background as a hospital chaplain. I am a Reiki instructor and healer. I got into this, Bob. I didn't even believe in UFOs. I was raised in the Baptist tradition, and that's what I came up with. And anything outside of that box we were in, you just didn't deal with. And so I'm an experiencer, and I have been for a good number of years. And that kind of led me to this. Now, I'm not a big person on propulsion systems and anti-gravity stuff. I think that's important, but that's not where I go to. I naturally try to go to the religious, spiritual side of the aisle. And so I just got very interested in, what if these beings visited me in 1989 at the beginning, then that means they were probably here in 1989 BCE, and probably before that. So that's how I got into it, and it rocked my world at the time. Now I have some post-traumatic stress stuff that goes on from time to time, but now I've just incorporated it into my life. And I wouldn't change it for anything in the world, but I've had my ups and downs. I mean, someone tried to have me fired from my church because they, a few years back, and this was a big donor to the church too, but the church stood up for me. I was surprised, pleasantly so. She I don't know, she said she turned on the TV one night about 2 a.m, and she said, my pastor's there talking about little green men. And I figured she must have turned on an episode of Ancient Aliens. And she went to the board of my congregation. And, this is my bread and butter. I have a family. Yeah. And she tried to have me fired, but they wouldn't do it. They said that at the time, they said, he doesn't preach this from the pulpit. He's not forcing this down your throat. And he's probably right. But we see no reason to fire him for this. So I was very pleasantly surprised.
I bet you will as well. You spent a lot of time studying such extraterrestrial accounts and reveals his theories in UFOs and the Bible.
Yeah, yeah. You know, when I get interested in a subject, I exhaust it. And what happened was I went to a support group because I was really having a rough time because I was having these experiences at the beginning, twice a month for 8 months to a year.
Oh my God.
So I found a support group. And I just tried to read up on everything I could. And I picked up a book by a friend and colleague, retired Presbyterian minister, Dr. Barry Downing. And he wrote a book back in 1968 called The Bible and Flying Saucers. It's a classic.
Yeah.
He's not an experiencer, but he was the one who started me on this quest. Of course, Zachariah Sitchin. I had the pleasure of meeting him when I lived in New York. And so I just started reading everything I could on religion and UFOs, not only in Western culture, but Native American lore, in Islam, in other, just other cultures talking about, they all tell the story about these beings who come down from the sky. They help jumpstart civilization after catastrophe. And they were worshipped as gods, or they were thought of as gods. And I said, well, all of these people can't be lying. These stories are very similar. And so that's how I got on this journey. And by being an experiencer myself, it added a little more credibility. I mean, you see on my wall, I have, some star people there. I've got some paintings of Jesus, so it's all there in the Bible. It's all there. It's all there in our scriptures, but it's hard for people to talk about it. And I understand, because it starts to getting to things like, is there a God? How did all this happen? I've talked to some ministers who said, Michael, if what you're saying is true, I can't believe in anything anymore. I said, why? Why would you say that? They said, no, I can't. So it's a, what do you call it? It's an ontological shock for a lot of clergy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because when you talk about the pyramids and all like that, who built them?
Yeah.
Were they gods?
Well, they were gods to the people because of the technology. And I know, listen, Bob, there's a lot of people, well, Michael, just because we can't figure out how our ancestors did it doesn't mean they didn't do it. It doesn't mean they did either. And so, when like I said, when you go back, I know people who don't read the Bible anymore, and I get it, believe me, because I'm no longer in that strict, I'm not, religion has done a lot of damage. I'm in a very liberal congregation. But my point being is that the Bible, the Quran, those books are rich because they tell us what our ancestors, what it was like for them to share the planet with these beings. It's right there. They're telling you that story. The church, unfortunately, has translated and mistranslated, sometimes intentionally, sometimes not. But these stories are about our ancestors sharing the planet with these off-world intelligences. And I know a lot of people don't like to use the word, but we were invaded. We were invaded. Now, you can call it visitation, but these beings came from another dimension, another star system, probably both, and they came here. Some of them intermarried with us, according to the book of Genesis and the book of Enoch. Some of them wanted to keep us so ignorant that we didn't even know we were naked, like in the stories of the Garden of Eden. And my contention is that if you put the word ET, I don't like the word alien, but if you put the word ET or star person everywhere you see the word angel, the Bible makes a whole lot more sense.
Yeah, the angel. Yeah. What
It
are
makes
angels?
sense. It makes sense because we have to be careful with the word angel. You know, it's malakim in Hebrew, or malak and angelos in Greek. See, angel tells you the function of the person.
Right.
It doesn't tell you where they're from. And nowhere in the Bible does it say that angels have wings. Now, I know you got some listeners. I'm not saying angels don't exist, because I've heard people get very angry. But I think our ancestors put wings on these folks to let us know that they flew. They were flesh and blood people. They made love. They drank. Okay. They got angry. They fought among themselves. These are not wispy little spiritual beings that just float around. These are flesh and blood people. In the Greek, they call them the Titans, because some of them are hybrids. They're the Anunnaki in the Sumerian culture, the Nephilim. But some of these beings, they were flesh and blood. They got angry. They fought. They drank wine. They carried on. Some of them were friendly. Some of them were just observing, and some of them wanted to keep us as a servient species, as Zachariah Sitchin talks about, as a lot of other scholars are finding out and talking about as well.
When we're talking about non-human, what is considered non-human intelligence? Are we talking about one extraterrestrials, animals, or something else entirely?
Well, I think that once you realize that we live in a populated universe. I mean, listen, Bob, you read some of the accounts in the literature. There's some beings that don't even need a ship to get here. They just appear. Okay. They don't even need craft. And so all I can tell you is that the universe is teeming with life all around us, in this room while I'm talking to you. And so then it gets to be, okay, there's some beings don't need craft, some do. Some are just pure energy beings. Some are just spirits. Some are just pure consciousness. So I think it's all of the above. Some live underground, like the Hopi. The Hopi talked about the ant people.
Yeah, that's right.
So I think that it's as varied, it's as diverse as you can make it. We live in a universe teeming with life. I see that Melvin Suter, Mr. Suter, was saying maybe God made them. I don't, and I want to be respectful, Mr. Suter. I don't believe in a God that needs to test us. I don't believe in a God that needs to put us under the test, like they have an ego. I don't believe in that kind of God. I don't even know what the word God means anymore, but I believe in something greater than me, but it's not something, it's probably more energy and intelligence. I don't believe in an anthropomorphic deity. Well, let me see if Michael really believes in me or not. What kind of God needs that kind of gratification? We made God in our image.
Yes.
God doesn't need to test me. What kind of God needs to test someone? So I don't think that, I don't subscribe to that, but it works for some people, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Once you accept that there's other life in the universe, your whole attitude has to change. Who was it? Was it Socrates, or was it the unexamined life is not worth living, but the unexamined faith is not worth having? So if I'm still believing the same thing I believed 60 years ago, I haven't grown, because you grow and you change and you see things differently. You get a little more insight into things. So that's where my journey has taken me.
Yeah. How do ancient texts and spiritual traditions describe non-human intelligence?
They describe them as angels. They describe them as God's beings that they worshipped. If you look at, I'm just thinking of Western culture here. If you look at the Yahweh stories, which is, how we got here in the West, Yahweh is a very, very, very not nice person, but ever since Elohim got mistranslated, because Elohim is God's plural. I mean, you look at some of the stuff Yahweh does. If someone did that today, we put them in jail.
Yeah.
Well, we were taught that we're supposed to worship this being. This is a being who commits genocide. This is a being he doesn't want you to intermarry. This is a being who's worried about if you're circumcised or not. This is a being who by his own name says, I'm a jealous God. What kind of God is jealous? If you're God, you're God. This is a being who says that you can dash babies' heads up against the stone. This is not the kind of God that I want to worship. And so, but looking at it from the perspective of that we've been visited, you get it that Yahweh is not God. Yahweh is one of the Anunnaki. Yahweh is one of the Elohim. Anytime, Melvin, anytime. Thank you for the question. And so when I talk about this stuff, Bob, I'm not trying to take away anybody's faith. I'm not. But I am saying, if you look at the Bible, you don't even have to know the Hebrew. It would help. But even if you look at the way things are used in sentences, you will see that this is not a God. But we've been taught that. And so if your God can commit genocide, which Yahweh did, he wiped out Sodom and Gomorrah. If you go through, they're always fighting. If your God can commit genocide, then you say you can commit genocide. If your God can divide people up to you're my people, but those aren't, then you're going to look at people like that. And most of the wars and stuff, if not all, yes, there's oil involved, there's always money, but a lot of these wars are religious wars.
Is intuition or channeled information a form of contact with non-human intelligence?
I would say yes. Again, I go back to the Bible, and we can talk about other things, but the Bible, when we look at Jacob has the dream, there's a lot of dreaming going on in the Bible, and it's the way the angels or the way God connects with folks.
Yeah.
I've had dreams that really weren't dreams. And so, that's one way. Obviously, channeling is anything that can kind of change your consciousness to get you out of kind of being this earthbound person, to get you up, to alter your states is always a way. That's what shamanism is, right? We can dance, we can drum, we can drink something, we can do these things to alter our consciousness to get in touch with another reality, maybe a more real reality.
Ooh, yeah. What would happen if disclosure came through? Would it affect the religion?
Yeah.
Would they panic?
Yeah. It's a great question. I will tell you this. A lot of the religions won't have a problem. Hinduism, they talk about these beings, and they have a whole pantheon of deities. Buddhism, which is more of a philosophy than a religion, they could, because they have different deities. Even Catholicism, because they have Saint Jerome, Saint this one, Saint that one. But mainline Protestantism would have a problem because they don't make room for other gods, other deities. So let's say, for instance, there's disclosure. You're going to have to be able to explain, if you're a clergy person.
Mm.
So if Jesus died for everybody, did he die for people who live in other dimensions? Did he die for the Greys or the Nordics or the reptilians? I mean, how do you explain that? Because they may say we never needed saving. That's number one. Number two, if you still stick to that argument, so what do? Do you say he has to go to this planet and be crucified and rise again for that race of people? Then he has to go to another planet and the same thing. That's cruel. So Christianity is going, and that's the whole basis of Christianity. This man lived, died, Son of God, died, rose again, and died for everybody. Well, how are you going to make that make sense? And I'm not trying to ridicule it, really. I'm just trying to say, if you think through this, Christianity is going to have a lot to mainline Christianity.
Yeah.
Like I said, Hinduism, they're used to it. Catholicism will be shaky, but they have other deities. Buddhism, a philosophy, they have other deities as well. But Christianity says there's only one. And that one is for everybody. And now you're going to have to think your way. You're going to have to do a lot of mental gymnastics about that. So, and I think that's why, at least here in the States, we're not talking about that. We'll talk about national security. We will talk about back engineering. We'll talk about how many people saw commercial pilots and military pilots. We'll talk about that. But no one's touching it yet. Because if you look in some of these texts, whether it's Genesis, the Book of Enoch, the Enuma Elish, the Mesopotamian scriptures, the Epic of Gilgamesh, they come out and say these beings created us. Now, how is that going to go over when you're when we've been taught that God created us? And this is not to say there is no God. I believe in a source. I don't know what it is. I know I believe I will go back to it. I believe I come from that. That source is love. But it's not a man or woman up in the sky doing that, at least not in my experience. And so mainline Christianity will have a lot of explaining to do.
I bet. I know there's a lot of things in chat room there. Universal love being. No, he wasn't killed. The sacrificing plant was part of fallen matrix. Jesus is the incessant source that we all embody when we remember.
Yeah, see, I don't touch those kind of things because that's people's personal belief.
Correct.
So I'm not going to, because that's what they believe. And my job is not to challenge that. I'm just saying that when you read the Bible in its original language, the language that we have, when you read that, none of that stuff was added later. So I'm just going by that. I'm not going to argue with people about whether, whether he was killed or, that doesn't concern me. And if that's what you believe, then, I respect that. But I'm just saying that if you go and read the languages and read the story, this is what we're told, that we were invaded, that these beings, for instance, Yahweh in Deuteronomy 32, he's been given the tribe of Jacob. He doesn't even get the whole Jewish tribe. He gets the tribe of Jacob. That's what that Old Testament story is about. And when you read comparative religions and you compare them, you see that, wait a minute, these beings are from somewhere else. And the thing about saviors and all of that, that was added much, much later by the church.
Tell us about the healing you got for your blood clot.
Oh, wow. You did the research. Back in 2013, I was having a very hard time. It's going to sound like a country western song. I was getting divorced. I had a blood clot, and my dad died. Okay, all in like a little space of time. And I have a lot of friends. The backstory is this, and it ties into what I'm going to tell you.
Yeah.
I have a lot of friends who fought in Vietnam. I did not fight in Vietnam. I was a little too young. The war ended when I was getting out of high school. And some of my Vietnam vet friends, they would talk about it very freely, like we're talking, sometimes maybe even oversharing. And then there were some of my friends, they didn't know that's a part of my life. I don't know. So my friends were telling me about what it was like to be in combat and to try and get some sleep during the war. You know, they would be in a foxhole and there'd be ingoing and outgoing artillery. Sometimes there's water in the hole, but you were trying to survive. And they were telling me about, you know, the loudness, and it was a cacophony. I'm glad I didn't have to ever go to a war, serve in a war. So I had a blood clot that ran from my ankle up to the groin area in my right leg. My leg was this big. I didn't know it was a blood clot. I never had a blood clot. I thought it was maybe I pulled a muscle. I would put the energy, you know, on it, and it would work for a couple hours, but it could not dent it. My ex-wife told me, she said, you need to go to a doctor. It's not natural. 4th of July, 2013, 10 minutes to 10 Eastern Standard Time. There were terrible, terrible, terrible thunderstorms here. And to me, it sounded like artillery. I couldn't sleep. It was terrible. The good thing about it was I'm not a big firecracker person, so I didn't have to go. I used to go with my daughter and my ex to see the fireworks. I can't stand them. Okay. I've been going. They're putting me on medication. I'm on something called a Nexaparin, where I have to give myself an injection, anything to get the blood clot to go down.
Yeah.
I couldn't sleep that night. I was lying in bed, and, you know, I thought to myself, this is what my Vietnam vet friends had to go through. 10 minutes to 9. I turn around. I feel a presence in the room, which always happens when they come. I can't explain it. The air changes. It gets real quiet. And when I turned around, this guy, only he had a hoodie on, like a cowl.
Oh, yeah.
Like the monks wore in the 12th century or whatever.
Yeah.
He was almost as big as my 9-foot ceiling. He was so built, you could see the muscles through the robe. He had a rope belt on. I looked at him and I thought I was going to have a cardiac arrest. He holds his hand out like this, and an apple green light comes out of his hands and it hits me in my stomach. Now, I didn't feel anything, but I saw it. I saw it hit me. And, you know, it's kind of like fight or flight. And he looked at me and I looked at him, and his atoms just dispersed. He just went, he was no longer there. When I looked down at my legs, my heart was beating. I mean, I was very, very scared. My leg was normal. I called a friend of mine. You've probably heard of him. His name is Preston Dennett.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Okay, I called him. He put this story in his second UFO healing book, but I called him because I figured he knows about this stuff. And at that time, he was still living in California. Now he lives on the East Coast. But it was 9:50 my time. It was 10 minutes to 7 his time. But he didn't pick up. He was probably out. I told my wife at the time, and I showed my daughter, and they both did this. They were like, they healed you. And I was like, it looks like it. So, but the tricky part, and I have the papers right there. Well, I did an Ancient Alien episode. They haven't shown it yet, where we talk about this, what we're talking about now.
Yeah.
And they needed to see the papers from the doctor. So they're right there. So I'm not going to tell the doctors the story I just told you. They would medicate me and lock me up.
Yeah.
But they did say, what did you do? What just happened here? I mean, not here, but you were just here, what, a week? They were looking 10 days ago. Because I had to go back every week in 10 days. They would stick me and take the blood and see if it had thinned.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't know what happened. I said, I don't know. I said, maybe the medicine worked. They said, it doesn't work that quickly. What did you do? And they kept going like that. And I just said, look, I don't know what happened. You're a man of science. I'm a man of science, but I'm also a minister. I can't explain it, and you can't explain it. But can't you be happy for me? Can't you say, hey, Mr. Carter, we can. And they backed off after that. They said, of course, we're happy for you. Of course, we want you to be well and healthy. We just want to know what happened. And we left it at that. They wanted me to stay on this blood thinner called Coumadin, which I did not want.
No.
And they took me off of that. And the papers over there, they don't say what I told you, but they just said the blood clot's gone. And that was good enough for me.
Brilliant, isn't it?
Yes. And then when you go read Preston's books, and you hear stories like this all the time. People's cancers going away. People having diabetes that somehow disappears. Or whatever you had, it's not as bad as it was after you have the visitation. And this is what's happening. And you see these stories where? They're in the Bible.
Do you think some of us are chosen to have visitations then?
Yeah. Exactly. And, it's something that has been going on since the beginning of time. And we're just getting it. I mean, collectively.
Yeah.
This has been going on. And, you can say that if you say you saw an angel, people will say, oh my God, you saw an angel. Well, if I say I saw an extraterrestrial, what are you, some kind of a nut? What's wrong with you? So you can believe that, but you can't believe this?
It's similar, like you're saying then. I know many years ago, I was living on my own. I was getting a bit down with myself, and all of a sudden, Jesus came in front of me.
Yeah.
And I looked and thought, oh, my God. And then it just disappeared.
Yeah.
And I thought, he's just come at that time to say, you're not alone.
There you go.
I'm always here for you.
There you go. There you go. And that's happened to me on numerous occasions. Listen, I was an atheist at one time. I was a Baptist. I was an atheist. I was agnostic. I never said I was a Buddhist, but because that's more of philosophy, but I meditate all the time and I pray. But I always go back to those teachings of Jesus, always. Now, maybe if I lived in China or India, maybe it would be Lao Tzu or Confucius or whatever. But I'm a man of the West, like you. I was educated. I was born here in the West. And those stories still mean something to me. I just got rid of the dogma. I got rid of if you don't do this and if you don't do that, because that's not what he was about in my studies.
Yeah, a lot of people say about the Bible, oh, I don't believe in it and all that carry on. But, you know, everybody to their own.
Yes, yes, yes. That's how I am. You see a couple people, Universal Love Being, put their stuff up there. Love it. But that's theology. We're not talking theology now. We're talking about a little archaeology, maybe, but we're talking about what these books are saying. There's a wonderful book called "The Gods of No, it's not the Gods of the Bible" by Mauro Biglio. You ever heard of him? He's an Italian man. He used to translate for the Vatican. They fired him. They fired him.
No.
But he translated for them, and they were like, no. And he doesn't add theology. And I got that from him. When people ask him questions about, and it's about, well, I believe this, or what, he says, I don't answer those questions because that's not where I'm coming from. That's your stuff. But you got to get that book. He's got the Hebrew right there in it, and it's translated for you. He was a Vatican interpreter, Mauro Biglino. You can see him on YouTube. And I bought several of his books. And they tell you what is written there. Not our personal, what we put on and he's my savior, or this was his essence, or he doesn't deal with that. This is what this says. And that's how I try to go about it, because the other stuff, that's why we argue and fight with each other, because you start getting into, this is what I believe, and it's okay to believe what you believe, you know, but I'm just going by what the book is saying, what the people are saying. And so that other stuff, theology, that was added on hundreds of years after Jesus died, or even in the Old Testament. But as far as what they're writing, these beings were flesh and blood. They fought with each other, and their technology was such that our ancestors, at least some of them, said that these are gods.
You know, and you had that alien and that alien or whatever it's called. Have you ever seen them again?
Yeah. It started when I was a kid, according to Bud Hopkins, the late Bud Hopkins. But me actually seeing them was from like 1989, which is when I saw, oh my God, I left them. Hold on, I'll show you. I'll show you the one.
That's fine.
Right here, I forgot him. This is the person I saw at the beginning.
All right.
I would see them for the first few months. Now, they didn't have the artist. I asked to make him look like a Buddha, but they had on something like this. It was a jumpsuit made of this kind of material.
All right.
Yeah. But this is the first. These are the first people I saw, and hold on, I don't want to break them. And they started coming all the time. They showed me some past life stuff. They showed me something that happened in the future that actually happened. They were working on me. I had all this electricity running. Now, this is twice a month. It's every full and new moon. And then a couple times I saw this guy, the reptilian. The reason why I say it's a guy is because when he talked to me, his mouth didn't move, but it was like I had a stereo system in my head.
Right, yeah.
And of course, they always say this, don't be afraid. How can I not be afraid? Look at you. Look at you.
Yeah.
How can you say that to me? And then I told you about the Nordic guy. So in other words, to answer your question, and that's how I got into the healing. I call it Reiki, but I don't know what it is now, because every time they come, it raises your vibration. It's a different kind of energy. And the last person I saw was this praying mantis person. That was in the
Oh,
summer of 2019. I have a
right.
friend, when I have a visit, I call her and she gives me a good price, and I draw what I saw, or I describe it, and she makes them for me.
Brilliant. Absolutely
Yeah,
brilliant.
yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
a lot of people will ask, how do you mix aliens with your life as a minister then?
Boy, that's a great question. You know, for a while I was in the closet about it because you couldn't tell anybody. I mean, I've been doing this for almost 30 years. Um, but now people are more open about it. I mean, I'm on TV talking about it. I go to conferences and stuff.
Yeah.
But Bob, I just I mean, when you look at all the religious books in Western culture, when you look at Aboriginal cultures, and they're talking about star people and the Palladians, like the Hopi did, and the Cherokee, and that's what our ancestors did. They lived with these beings. They knew they existed, and so you just accepted that it's a part of life, that we're not alone in the universe. We're not at the top of the food chain. Now, when I go to church on Sunday, I'm not sitting up there telling them that's not what they hire me for, not what they paid me for. Now they know about my beliefs about this, but they didn't hire me for that. So I just kind of live my life like our ancestors did.
Yeah.
Remember, this is new for us because we've been lied to for so long. But our ancestors lived with these beings, knew they existed, from Atlantis to Lemuria to Plato talks about the gods, Marcus Aurelius. So it just becomes part of this is just life, you know?
So, when we talk about life, have you been back before then? Have you had a previous life to this one?
According to these people, I do believe in reincarnation. I wasn't just trying to be cute. When one of the times they came, and then when they came, after a while, they used to paralyze me. And they showed me some pictures. They showed me two pictures. On the left side, I was lying down in bed. They showed me a picture of a monk, with the egg here and,
Yeah.
Franciscan, whatever, with a robe and that kind of thing. And right next to it, they showed me, it was a future thing, but it did happen. I was in a three-piece suit and I was in a church and I was speaking. So I took it as I've done this before because I'm very comfortable with religion. I'm very comfortable with churches. I'm very comfortable going in a mosque or a synagogue because I've been around it in other lifetimes.
Mm.
So yeah. I do believe in that. Also, a lot of that stuff was in the Bible and taken out of the Bible, but a lot of primitive Judaism talked about reincarnation, as did a lot of Native American spirituality. But you had to go underground with it because the church was prosecuting and killing people. And if you believe in reincarnation, at that time, a lot of clergy, and maybe even now, thought it was a threat to the church because you needed the church. The church was to tell you what was right, what was wrong, what was fake news, what wasn't. And if you just came back, they have no control over that. And also, some people may say, well, you know what? Everything gets balanced out anyway. So what I'm going to reap what I sow. You know what I mean? If I could do crazy stuff now, but it's going to catch up with me later, so I'll worry about that later. But right now, and remember, part of the church was to control. Part of the
How?
church job at that time was to control.
Yeah. How does your family view what you do now?
Well, my mom and dad are gone. They died. At the beginning, my mom she didn't understand it, but I could bring it up with her.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about long drawn out conversations, but because she's watching.
Mike, did she have alien visitations then, or your father?
No, not that I know of, but my mom talked to me about some experiences that were definitely paranormal. And there's in the literature there's data that shows it comes in families, that families have it. But I know she was very psychic, but she was afraid of it. My grandmother, her mother's mother, was a very psychic person. She would give readings to people. I do readings for people, so it's in our family.
Yeah.
But she was very afraid of it. So she would never. She was frightened. My mom was a very fearful person. Period. But yeah.
It's very interesting when you talk about your family and what they believed in, and what about your children then? Do they believe in what you do?
I don't want to bring them into it.
That's fine.
I don't want the scrutiny. I will tell you this though. My daughter, one day, it was the time, and this will answer your question in a way. I'll give you a couple instances. One day she kept, well, not one day. I noticed for a few. When I told her that this is what happened to me, because they could come while she's with me. Okay. So for a while, she kept calling me mom. She would go, "Oh, mom, dad." And after a while, I was getting annoying. I said, "Why do you keep calling me mom?" She said, "Don't you remember? There was a time when you were mom." I said, "What?" She said, "Daddy, don't you remember? There was a time when you were mom and mom was you. Don't you remember that?" And she said, "Do you believe that?" I said, "Yeah, I know you wouldn't lie to me, but that's something I don't remember." So then she said to me, I said to her, because we're very close, I said, "Baby, we love you so much. Daddy loves you so much. And I'm very privileged to have you as a daughter."
Oh, yeah.
And she said, "Daddy, I love you. And I chose you I wanted you." I said, "What?" She said, "Yeah." She said, "I told them." She said, "I saw you and mommy sitting on the couch right there. You didn't have a shirt on." And I was like, "Oh my God, what else did she see?" And she said, "I told them that that's where I want to go." And I said, I want that to be my mommy." And I said, "What?" And she said, I said, "Well, who are you talking to?" She said, "A space person." A few years ago, I was single, before I remarried. And I had my own apartment across town here.
Yeah.
And she would stay with me. She had her own room, her own bathroom,
Yeah.
custody thing,
Oh, yeah.
And I got up the next morning and to get her ready for school. And she said, "Daddy, why did you leave here last night? Why did you leave me home by myself last night?" I said, "Baby, I would never." "What are you talking about? I never leave you here by yourself." She said, "I got up and went to the bathroom." And she said, and her bedroom's next to mine. She said, "Your covers were pulled back and folded up." And she said, "I looked in the whole apartment." Now, the apartment was small, and you weren't there. I said, "Well, I would never leave you." And she said, "It was a big full moon last night, and the light was shining in your room and in the living room." And then I said, oh boy.
Oh,
I said, no, baby, there was no full moon last night. And she said, did you go with your friends, Dad? Did you go with your friends? Can you hold one sec? Someone, don't
yeah,
go. Give me a sec. Okay,
yeah, no problem.
okay, hold on. I'm sorry. Hold on.
He'll be back in a minute. This fascinating talk with Michael. It's probably his alien friend.
Sorry, Bob. I'm usually not that unprofessional. My neighbor kept banging on the door. There was a bear. A bear knocked over my trash can.
Oh no.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't mean to be that unprofessional. I just told him I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she's had her own experiences in the sense of she's psychic. She dreams stuff. She's a Pisces.
I am too.
Yeah, she dreams stuff, and then it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, like just events, things every day. Nothing, like profit or what. But like she'll have a dream about bumping into someone or this, and then it happens. So she's got that in her limb. Pisces are deeply spiritual, and they are visionary people. Yeah. So all those water signs. I'm a Cancer myself, but anyway, yeah. That's been intriguing, and I was fortunate enough to marry the women I married. They didn't have a problem with this. Some of them already believed it. My wife now is fascinated by it, and she never said, "What are you, some kind of," and now she's into it. I don't know if she's an experiencer. I don't think she is. Sometimes I do, but it's open, and like she helped me put up these pictures on the wall. What woman usually would do that? Not unless they had some, and she's not an experiencer. This is where I do my counseling. I have a Reiki table right here. But I've had only one person come here, and said, "Oh, I want to get the energy from you." But she couldn't handle it. She said, "I can't come here anymore." She said, "I love what you do and what have you." And I said, "It's okay. It's okay." She said, "It's just too much for me." But I have,
It looks a nice place you've got.
It's a nice place. This is my cave here. My wife has her thing there, and she's got her own office.
I can feel the energy from you over to me. I can feel great energy around you.
Yeah, it is, and I thank you for that. Yeah.
So we've got about 7 or 8 minutes left. What you got planned for the future?
Great question. I don't know. I'm on sabbatical from church. I got 3 months this year and 3 months next year. I've been off since July 1. What I'm thinking about doing, I'm trying to get this editor to help me with it. He keeps saying, "Yeah, we're going to do it, but I guess it's summertime." But I wish he would just tell me. He said, "We'll have it done by the end of the year." All the books that I've written, I want to compile them and make it one book.
Right.
I got a book on UFOs in the Bible. I got them right here. You can go on Amazon. Alien Scriptures is my first book. Okay. The second, Extraterrestrials in the Whole. They're all on Amazon. That was my first book. The second book is A New World If You Can Take It. God, Extraterrestrials, and the Evolution of Human Consciousness. Then I didn't want to be just looked at as the UFO minister. So I wrote a book called God Consciousness. It's a 30-day manual of every day there's a lesson.
Oh,
Then I
yeah.
wrote, yeah. Then I wrote a book called The Metaphysics of Spiritual Healing and the Power of Affirmative Prayer. Then I wrote a book called Initiation. This is for people who are experiencers or think they are or know someone who is.
That's a good
It
book.
tells you the things to look out for to give you a clue that, wait a minute, I may have been visited. And my final book is called Enlightenment. It's a book of sermons on philosophy, on religion, on race, on just the hot button topics. And I got all these books, and they're on Amazon. Or
Right.
you can go on my website, michaeljscarter.com. You can get them there. But I'm thinking about putting them all together because it's a nice arc there. Prayer, healing, meditation, UFOs in the Bible, part 1 and 2, and a book of sermons. I think that would be great. And that would be my legacy. And just put them all together in a nice little volume. And I'm sure people would be interested.
It's like going through them all and picking what's going to match that, that's going to match that, and that's going to match that.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I know we got to go. We got about a few minutes, but this is what someone told me. And it stuck with me now. I'm 68 years old. And I had a good friend named Gene Ashley. Gene has crossed over. He's been dead since 1999.
Right.
I met him when I was an actor. We worked on a set together, a movie set together. But he was a very, 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 very gifted psychic. And he didn't know he was a psychic. He took a psychic development class, and he was a pure clairvoyant. I still listen to tapes of some readings he did for me. I used to go to Gene 2 or 3 times a year. He told me that I was being visited before I told him because I wasn't telling anybody. One day I went to his house for reading. I knocked on the door. He let me in. He said, come on in. He said, next time when you come to my house, you should tell me when you're bringing company. I said, what are you talking about? He said, you know what I'm talking about. I said, Gene, I don't know what you're talking about. He said, Michael, he told me that I was being visited. I told nobody. So he drew a picture of the person that was.
Oh.
Yeah. Which I'm still looking for, but I know I have it over there. Anyway, make a long story short. I know I was getting on his nerves because I was so, outside, I didn't have a child then. So outside of that was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. I was seeing these beings. And when I would go to him, I would be excited. Come on, Gene. What do the space people, what do they want? What do they want me to do? Tell me. And one day I could see he was getting aggravated. He said, look, first of all, I can't bring them in. They come to me when you're here, but they may not come all the time. So don't pressure me to, I'm going to give you the information and it may have nothing to do with them. I said, okay. But he also said this. He said, Michael, there's more to your life than this. It was like cold water in my face. But I hear it deeper now. And when you asked me at the beginning, which was beautiful, what do you do? I'm a husband, I'm a father. I have a full life, but I was putting myself in a box that all I am is an experiencer. And that's not what life is about. That's something that's happened in my life, but it's not my entire life. And I leave that with people because sometimes we put ourselves in boxes. We don't like other people to, but we will. And we do. And so I am a lot of things, and I also happen to be an experiencer, but that's not all of who I am. That's why I wrote those different books, because I'm still known as the UFO minister, but I didn't want to put myself in that box.
I understand that as well. What you're saying
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. He said, Michael, there's more to you than this.
I was going to say that as well. There's more to come as well.
Yeah. And what else about him? You know, no, I've heard people say, oh, I want to, how come they don't come to me and all this stuff? And I said, well, you need to be careful what you ask for, because it's not all fun and games. But he was like this. I would say, Gene, thank you so much for, you know, being the go-between here. And he would say this. Yeah, I've heard of Diana Pasulka. I know who she is. He would just say, oh, Michael, I'm just part of it. That's all. It was no big deal to him.
No.
It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to go study this, or maybe they'll come to me or whatever. He was just like, I remember one time I referred to them as our friends. I said, any word for me from our friends? He said, they're not my friends. He said, they're your friends. They're your friends. He said, don't say they're not my friends. But I mean, most people, they're like, well, I want him to come to me, or, you know, he was just an old, wise soul.
Yeah, it sounds though.
I miss him so much.
I bet that's why you listen to his tapes. Because I think it'd be fantastic.
Yeah. One last thing. My brother, what? Oh, Brother Suter. He says, not a catch me out question. Brother, I know you wouldn't do that. I believe that they were created. See, I believe in God. I just want to be clear with you.
Yes.
I just don't believe that God, Brother Suter. I don't believe in that vengeful God. I'm gonna throw a lightning bolt at you, and I'm gonna get Bobby. You out having too many pints last night. I'm gonna get. No, I don't believe in that. I believe we come from a source, and it's probably pure energy and intellect. Any God that you can describe is not God. If I can describe, the finite can never comprehend the infinite, at least not while we're in these bodies. So I don't believe they had a hand in creating us, right? But when you read the literature, whether you read Billy Meyer or you read Georgia Dancy, I'm talking about the old school brothers.
Yeah.
These beings believed in a God. They believed in something greater than them. They just didn't believe the superstitious part of it that we did. So yeah, I believe that. I believe that. You know, the creation, Billy Meyer, the Palladians call what we call God creation. And, you know, Native American folks will refer to the Great Spirit or the Creator. So I believe that. I believe in a God. I know a lot of people who someone called me up a few weeks ago. They always come to my conferences, not my conferences, and they said, you okay? I heard you had that hurricane. So it was actually a couple of years ago, about a year and a half. And I said, yeah. And he said, boy, I'll be glad when they come and straighten all this out. And I'm like, I didn't say anything, but so you've replaced them with God. You may not believe in this. So the ETs are going to fix everything now. That's not what it's about. Not for me. Yeah, Diana, you know, with Miss Pasulka, it's hard to gauge. Sometimes I think she can be a little fear-based. You know, and we got to be careful. Yeah, some of them you want to look out for, some of them no. And you know, she's very tied up with you. I just think I don't know what to make of her yet. I'm glad she's out there talking. I'd like to hear more experiencers talking.
Yeah.
Yes, the Vatican has evidence of UFOs. Yeah, and they've talked, I'm sure, and they talk about UFOs. I'm talking to Miss, well, I think it's Mason Lawson. Yeah, Mr. Mason Lawson.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm on the fence with Miss Pasulka, but I'm glad she's out there. I know she's got 2 or 3 books out now. And she was raised Catholic, and so she's got a lot of that influence in her, you know, her insights and what have you. But I'm glad she's out there doing her thing.
Yeah. You know, whatever she does is good what she's doing.
Yes.
We're all different. We
Yeah, and
all
we all got a different piece of the puzzle.
we have, yes.
Yeah, so I would
We're all-
never. I'm
We're
not
all
going
out
to
there
badmouth.
to help everybody.
Yeah.
In life.
Yes, I agree. I agree.
But thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been really good talking with you tonight.
Bob, anytime I would do it again. We could go into the Bible a little more. I can start giving you some chapters and verses to
Yes.
look at. We can talk about healing. Would love it. Oh, someone's saying, yeah, I mean, you can give up Catholicism. I'm not saying she's a worshiping Catholic.
No.
Get on my level, but there are undercurrents in that when you listen to her talk. The extremes of good and evil and that kind of thing. But I'm not saying she's a worshiping Catholic, but she has a Catholic background. And there's no crime in that. If you ever need me, give me a call. Please send me the link so I can send it to my friends.
I will do. No problem there. I'll send you, because it's live on YouTube now anyway.
Okay.
So I'll send you the link to it. And
Yes.
then you can put it wherever you want then.
Okay. And thanks again, Bob. I would, anytime you want to talk, and you have a wonderful group of people in your chat, and I wish you peace and richest blessings.
Oh, thank you so much. And the same to you as well.
Thank you, brother.
God be with you.
God bless. Bye-bye.
God bless. Good night and God bless.
You too, brother.